Welcome to the Parenting with Impact podcast with your hosts Elaine, Taylor-Klaus, and Diane Dempster, co-creators of ImpactParents.com, an online community, award-winning blog, and service organization helping parents all over the world to raise complex kids become capable, independent adults.
Hi everyone, Elaine and Diane here, and we know that you want your complex kids to grow up to be happy and independent, and yet you're not always sure how or when to help with that.
In this podcast, we'll encourage you to collaborate with all kinds of complex kids and support them in navigating life and learning.
And we'll interview leading experts from around the world, as well as parents in our own community, talking about how training for parents actually helps these complex kids.
We'll talk about the issues we hear parents struggling with all the time and how a coach approach can support and empower your amazing young people.
We won't tell you what to do. We're going to help you figure out how. So let's move on to the next conversation.
Welcome back, everybody, to another conversation of the Parenting with Impact podcast. I am here today with parent extraordinaire, Aaron Huey, and I'm excited to be in this conversation and find out more about you. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here and honored to be able to talk to your audience.
Thank you. So we started the conversation before we even got started, everybody, both of us now standing because ADD is in the house. So let me start by asking you, how did you come to be doing the work you do in the world as a parenting guy?
First of all, all credit due to my parents. I put them through gosh and golly heck, and they were really progressive attitudes with the stern traditional discipline and expectations, with a modern understanding that putting a child down is the wrong direction, lifting them up is the right direction, but still strong boundaries. And so I give a lot of credit to my mom and my dad. Now, my mom is my biological mother, and my dad is not my biological parent. He's the man who stepped in and took over when he noticed an empty seat at my table. And to his credit, he never tried to sit in that chair. He sat in his own chair, and that affected me deeply, and now showed me how to sit in my son's stepfather chair at his table and not try to be his father, but just his stepdad, and be the guy who's there rooting for his win. And it doesn't solve the wound, ever does it? So that's really how this all started. I started with the absent parent wound, and my mom quickly found out that I was extremely ADHD. This was back in the 70s. So early 70s. So there was not much support, just a lot of ideas. And it was still the boy disease, the rambunctious, can't sit down, can't shut up, always interrupt. And oh my gosh, he's going to struggle so much with drugs and relationships and education. And by God, if they weren't true and right, not sure if it was predestiny or manifest destiny, but
when you have a certain propensity towards stimulation seeking, you seek stimulation.
That's right. And the propensity, in addition to the voice that surrounds you, that reinforces the genetic propensity for addiction and struggle, with all the teachers going,
right,
oh, he's got ADHD, I'm sorry. So that growing up, I was severely bullied. I found drugs at 12 years old with the neighbors down the street. That didn't really take root until I was 18, when I was in acting school in California and was sexually assaulted. The Hollywood industry is what you think it is. It is Sodom and Gomorrah. That sent me on a death spiral. The depression, suicidality, the ADHD, the learning disabilities, now culminated with me finding cannabis as an absolute crutch and discovering that when I'm high, I'm happy, and when I'm sober, I'm suicidal. I had a lot of people telling me I should get sober and be sober, but what I did not have the words for, which I certainly do now, is that I really did want to live. And when I was sober, that was the challenge, was living. I got sober on May 21st, 1998, after losing custody of my daughter. I lost my marriage. I keep saying I lost. I traded it. Let's be clear. My drug addiction had turned severe. I opened a martial arts school a couple years later as my sobriety started to take root. And I had a parent come in and say, I just caught my 6-year-old son trying to kill himself for the 3rd time. Would you help him?
Wow.
And my heart said, how could you say no?
Yeah.
And that began a reputation in Boulder, Colorado that I began to develop and then ultimately cultivate, that I would work with the kid who was done. I would work with the kid like me. I would work with the ADHD, the depressed, the anxious, the suicidal, I said yes when other teachers would say, try gymnastics, try swimming, right? I was somebody else. And that spread around the community among counselors and parents in the schools. I grew my school. That started after school programs and weekend camps and then summer camps and ultimately teen rite of passage programs. And one day a parent said, can my kid just come live with you? My wife and I said, yes. We moved this teenager into our home. She told her best friend, who told her sister, who called and said, can my kid come? My wife and I looked at each other and said, I think we're doing this. And I kid you not, a week later, we had 6 boys living with us and 4 on a wait list. And we began to maneuver this sober home for boys, teen boys, into a full-blown residential treatment center with doctors and nurses and therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists and insurance and state licensing.
Wow.
We became the top performing adolescent treatment center in the United States.
Wow.
We closed due to the fires in Estes Park in 2022 and the insurance rates going prohibitively high, $750,000 a year for a policy.
Yeah.
And that's when I really turned my attention to taking the single reason why we were successful. And I'm going to be honest with your listeners. What we did with kids was great. It was awesome. We did really cool, innovative stuff, but everybody does. That was not the key to our 89% success rate. Our key to the 89%.
I want to interrupt for a second because I want to be really clear that an 89% success rate is unheard of. And extraordinary. So let's not gloss over that, if you don't mind, for a moment, and just say there's something different here, because what you did was, this is what we talk about with a coach approach. It was sustainable. It was long term. This wasn't a quick fix, and it wasn't a short term turnaround. That's a sustainable change.
And this 89% was not reported by former students. It was reported to us by their parents. And could be demonstrated by how little they were spending on their insurance policies versus how much they were spending before. Right. Our success rate came from putting the parents in treatment, not a 4-day parent weekend, an extreme. The parents went through phase work. The children signed off on their parents' phase work. The parents got into therapy. They got into family therapy. Our parent weekend was not a spectation. It was full participation, and the parents went through a deep, intensive 4-day intervention on their parenting styles. We became known for this, got us top 50 healthcare provider in the U.S. and top 100 innovator of healthcare in the U.S. And ultimately, because we also used martial arts, where all this began, I ended up getting inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame for our work with trauma and mental health and addiction and martial arts. So that's the story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's gorgeous. So let's dive in a little bit more into that, Aaron, because we, like you, I feel like if I have one message to give, it's the parents, the change you want for your kids starts with you.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all about helping parents, guiding parents to do their deep inner work, to heal some of those wounds you talked about earlier, and to be able to be present to the kids they've got in a way that those kids really need.
Right. And let's be clear. This is not the sitting the child, the teenager down therapeutic approach where the first question is, tell me about your mother, where you seem to be fishing for something that the parents did wrong.
Right.
Because that's the first resistance point of parents saying, my kid's doing this, my kid's doing this, my kid's doing this. And then to have someone show up and say, you're codependent, you're enabling your kid, creates a defensive relationship with the parent. What we can say, which is hard to hear, everything we've done has got us here. But thank God we're here, because here is, you're listening to a podcast, you're getting support, you're talking to a treatment facility, your kid is alive. Thank God we're here. and you're reaching out. And if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to end up back here. So radical change. And here's how we like to explain it. If you're a Spanish-speaking household and you send your child to a 4-month program where all they do is speak French, and you teach them about French culture and French history and what's the geopolitical French environment, and then you send them home, and the house is still a Spanish-speaking household, tell me what language the child is going to speak. That is a deep, self-reflective experience that parents must be willing to look in the mirror and face. If everything we've done as parents, the good, the bad, and the ugly, got us here, what are we willing to change? I know the parents we work with have been willing to look at everything, then change it. What can you change?
So when you help a parent, and you're preaching to the choir with me, right? So I'm trying to look at what my audience, and in our community, we're parents of complex kids, professionals supporting parents of complex kids, and probably half the parents ourselves are complex ourselves. That's this community.
Yes.
And the language I often use to describe what you were just saying is up until now. You can woulda, coulda, shoulda, anything up until now, but here's where you are now. What do you want to do from here forward when you know better, you can do better, right? So what is it that parents really need to know differently to make the changes you're talking about?
Here is what every healthcare provider, clinic, coach, and therapist knows, says, and the last thing parents try. Okay?
Yeah.
Self-care.
Right?
Self-care. Let's say this. Your house is falling apart. The first thing parents want to do is paint it. So it doesn't look like it's falling apart. But the cracks are in the basement. It's in the foundation. For parents, there are 5 foundation points. Okay, here they are. Are you sleeping? I already know the answer. Don't worry about telling me the answer. I already know the answer. Your sleep patterns are for crap.
Okay.
Are you eating nutritious food? Are you drinking enough water? Are you moving your body? Are you breathing on purpose? See, these are 5 fundamental foundational things that support our well-being that we do accidentally all day long. And it's accidental parenting.
That's the word.
That gets us here. Yes.
That's right.
Because you're doing it. Right. Your sleep sucks. And so you're craving food you don't need. And you're drinking everything but water because it jacks your system up just so you can get some work done and earn some money so that when you go home, you don't have to focus on that. You can focus on the kid, and you're breathing all day. You're panic breathing. You're shallow breathing, and you're not exercising because you can't go to the gym. You can't leave the kid at home because, so
you're
get
afraid.
it. I'm not. Yes. Yeah, of course.
Right.
We're fear
totally
parenting.
Fear parenting.
We're survival parenting, and we're accidental parenting. I'm going to say this now, and I know the questions you're going to ask me at the end, and I'm going to repeat this at the end.
Okay.
You will not be a successful parent accidentally. We will not parent our child, our home, through crisis accidentally. It is intentional. It is purposeful. It is mission-driven. It is vision-driven, and it is passion-backed parenting.
That's it.
And that requires conscious sleeping, conscious eating, conscious drinking of water, conscious movement of our body, and conscious breathing practice. And guess what? All of those things are free. Start there.
And readily available. Shockingly.
Yes, right now. You can do it.
Let me run something by you because in our world, and we've been saying this now for 15 years, if you don't know where to focus, parent, there are 2 places to focus. One is self-care, with you 1,000%. The other is relationship. Lean into connection and relationship. So speak to that a little bit.
So at the end of my podcast, I'm 300 episodes deep. And at the end of every podcast, I say the same thing. Take care of yourself first, your adult relationship second, and your children third. Now, adult relationships means your romantic partner, your parenting partner, or support groups, your facilitated partnerships of support, not the friend you vent with and who indulges in the vent and your frustration. That helps only so much. A good friend says, okay, you got 10 minutes to let her rip, and I'm just going to listen and hold you and hold the space and sit in your shadow. But after 10 minutes,
I was going to say, then you're done.
Yeah, then you're done. And we go into solution mode, or we just go into release mode. and go. That's a great friend because they're keeping you and allowing you and holding space for you and loving you. And you get to say things like, I want to murder this child. I can't believe. And it's okay. They're not going to go, you can't do that because yes, but we need to be able to say it. Sitting with a parent who's sobbing, saying, how is it that I hate someone that I love so much?
So much. Yeah.
And to say, everybody else, all these other parents in the room who just heard this parent say that, raise your hand if you feel like that. And then take this parent who said it, who had the courage to say it, and turn him around and let him see that every parent feels like this. And you are not alone. You are not terminally unique. People have survived this. Families have survived this. Nicks have survived this. And we grow up, and my mom and my dad and my ex-wife and my daughter, these are the closest allies and friends I have in this world right now. And they were all there in the darkness, and they're all there in the light.
They're in the light. That's right.
Yes.
I'm going to stop us for a minute because I've been so engaged. I totally forgot we need to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Hi, it's Elaine. And if you like this podcast, you'll love our coach approach. Whether you're a parent looking for support or a professional supporting families, we invite you to download a free guide with 12 key coaching tools at impactparents.com/gift. You can begin using a coach approach to help kids become more independent or improve all of your conversations at work and at home. That's impactparents.com/gift.
Welcome back, everybody. My guest is Aaron Huey, and he is preaching the gospel of parent engagement and parent support and parent self-care and relationships and everything that we speak about and teach about at Impact Parents. So I'm so grateful to have you here. And it's nice to hear all that we teach coming out of someone else's now
Sure.
and reinforcing, because I was just thinking about a group call I had the other day where a new parent came in and was weeping, parents of teenagers, and was weeping about something. And I did exactly what you just described. I said, okay, is there anybody else in the room whose kids have had trouble going to school in the last couple of weeks? And almost every hand gets raised. And is there anybody else in the room who we did a few of those, and the hearts going around the room? And you just watched her release into the space of being held and being seen and being known without judgment, and how powerful that is.
Yeah, we talk about terminal uniqueness in the 12-step programs in recovery, which I got sober in those rooms. And it wasn't the steps that got me sober, but I'm not dissing the steps because let's be clear. The 12 steps are the most successful recovery program ever created, and they're free.
Yep.
So, and parents need to know that you can go to a meeting, even if it's not you, and you can go to an Al-Anon meeting because that's where your homies are. That's your tribe. So quit making excuses. Quit thinking it's a cult. Go. Just sit and listen. Go. I had parents in one of my parent workshops tell me that their daughter had called CPS on the dad and accused him of some horrific act because the dad grounded her and took away her phone for texting boys. And so, of course, CPS came in, did all the investigation.
Right.
The dad's like, how do I forgive her? How do I do this? And the mom's, how do we hate someone that we love so much? Like, we are terrible people. I don't trust. And I said, how many of you in the room? I had 30 parents. How many of you in the room have had your child call CPS? 8 hands went up. And the parents up front, parents up front are looking at me with tears in their eyes. And I said, stop looking at me and turn around and look at your community now. And they turned around. And then I said, while you're looking, parents, raise your hand if your child has ever stolen your car. Every hand in the room went up. And at some point, this terminal uniqueness gives way to community, or it kills you. And where we are not so special, it has damned us. We are dealing with something that has been dealt with before. And if you can't find the group, start one, because there are people who are looking. And you will be their sanctuary.
And let me ask you a question, because I'm hearing you, and this is the work that we're all about. Is we call it neurodiversity informed coaching support for parents. We are actually, the secret to what we do is we teach coaching skills to parents.
Yes, perfect.
But they're neurodiversity informed. And so there are a lot of parents who get caught up in a lot of what you're talking about, the behaviors There are all
Right.
of these behaviors, and the behaviors are a symptom of all of the things that they're struggling with.
Yes.
Sometimes it's addiction, sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's just whatever other aspects of neurodiversity are guiding them to those impulsive or stimulation-seeking behaviors or whatever it is.
The bad choices.
The choices they're
Yeah.
making for a lot of reasons, not always good reasons, but you can understand the reasons. You can see what brings them there.
Yeah, if you do the work to look at the choices, because I'm always asked, why do teens make bad choices? And my response is they don't. Because the results, these things that they are doing, smoking pot, cutting, suicide, depression, skipping school, running away, video game dependency, these are the solutions. These are not the problems. These are the solutions. And the problem with the solutions is that they work or they don't. And so when if the parent comes in and says, my kid's smoking pot all day long, and then I found a little bag of powder, I have no idea what it is, I just flushed it, and they're playing video games till 3 a.m, I let them talk, because these are the results.
Right.
These are not the problems, because what leads to results is actions. What leads to actions is feelings. What leads to feelings is thoughts. What leads to thoughts is experiences. And what leads to experiences is prime influence.
Yeah.
And that's prime influence goes all the way back at utero. That's genetics. That's epigenetics. This is the fact that we're somehow related to Genghis Khan. Come on. It's not tell me about your mom. This is such a deep, complex concept. And to recognize that every human action is need fulfillment. There are 5 basic human needs: safety, power, connection, freedom, and worth. Safety, power, connection, freedom, and worth. Safety starts in the womb. Power starts at that 18-month-old, that terrible twos where the kid's screaming in the aisle. Connection is when that 5 to 7 years old, all the way through mid-adolescence. Freedom is adolescence into young adulthood, and worth is the rest of our lives trying to establish our worthiness, right?
Right.
But these are developmentally appropriate needs, and they all exist at all times. Because if you have a violation of safety in utero, the dad's not involved, the mom's stressed, she's supposed to be in college, but now she's pregnant, and she didn't know it until she was smoking at the beginning, so that it can start all the way back there. But nonetheless, why is my child cutting? Why are they making such a bad choice? Cutting relieves pain because there's a massive dopamine rush. And because the brain was low on dopamine to begin with, the brain has found a solution to that by self-harming. And now a need is met. And the need meet, the crutch, becomes addictive.
And you know what jumps at me as I hear you say that is not only are we in a dynamic where the problem is that the solutions these kids come up with work in the short term.
Right.
The same thing happens to parents when they yell, when they over control, when they dictate, right? Because it works in the short term, we think it's a solution, but in fact, all it's doing is pushing kids further and further away.
Now, when we argue on Facebook about politics,
right,
which will solve nothing.
Effective.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to change my mind because you just called me a name about the person I think I might vote for. That makes sense. Really, that is need fulfillment on our own. What I'm connected to, how I connect myself, how I identify, is about safety, power, connection, freedom, or worth.
Yeah.
Is it power? All parents, here is my first number one strategy.
Okay.
Take a step back from the reaction and figure out the why. My newest book, The 4 Prime Archetypes, Why We Do What We Do, is the journey through the consciousness of someone's behavior, any behavior. And it takes a minute to step back from a reaction to the behavior, your child's behavior. Because forest for the trees, you are in it, you are not winning it, and you are reacting to it. The child is running the house because they have the strongest nervous system in the house. I did not say healthiest nervous system. I said strongest.
That's beautiful.
That 2-year-old in the grocery store who's having a meltdown on aisle 3 because you're not buying Choco Cocoa Bombs might have a low blood sugar crash going on right now, or they might have not had a nap or
whatever. Fill in the blank.
And that screaming is the strongest nervous system in the grocery store. That's why everybody notices your child. Yeah. So what does a healthy nervous system look like? whatever the result of good sleep, nutritious food, drinking enough water, moving your body, and breathing on purpose creates.
Beautiful. So I hate to stop the conversation because I could go all day. And it's time for us to start wrapping the conversation. So tell parents how they can find out more about you.
Please go to Amazon and look at the book, The 4 Prime Archetypes, Why We Do What We Do.
I will put it in the show notes, so there'll be a link in the show notes.
Wonderful. Thank you. It is a 25-year archetypal psychology product and understanding people's personalities. Your own, mirrors up, your own first, but then why everybody's doing the way they do things. It's fun. It's a fun finger point, and it's a clever look in the mirror. For parent support, everything I do, my books, my podcast, the parenting masterclass, all of it is at parentingteensthatstruggle.com. It's very simple. It is everything I have is right there on that website. And you can join me on my private Facebook page. It's a private group, Parenting Teens That Struggle.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love it. So before we wrap, you said you referenced this earlier, but we're going to come back. Before I ask you for your favorite quote or motto, is there anything you didn't touch on today that you feel like you want to make sure that you share with parents before we wrap?
Your emotions are no longer leverage. Stop using your emotions to parent. You have them. I'm not saying don't have emotions. Don't put that on me. Your kid does something, you hear a noise, 3 a.m, you go to your kid's room, the door's barred, you bump it open just in time to see their sneaker disappear out the window. Oh, you're going to be pissed. But you can't parent pissed. You will not. Your worst parenting is emotional parenting, is trying to decide what to do when you're angry. I say when you're afraid, frustrated, or fearful, frustrated, or fatigued. That's what I want. Fearful, frustrated, or fatigued. Your best parenting when you're fearful, frustrated, or fatigued is your worst parenting.
Right. So in those moments, that's when you need to breathe intentionally.
and utilize your support system.
Right.
Yeah.
Go to your community. Beautiful.
Vent the emotion, then parent.
Beautiful. Yeah. Love it. So do you have a favorite quote or motto that you want to share?
What
comes
hard.
Up now? Because I suspect you've got many.
I do. This one's hard to do. So in those moments where you feel hopeless and frustrated and everything, it's very simply this. The love you withhold is the pain that you carry. And this is for yourself. This is for your children. This is for your relationship. The love you withhold is the pain you carry. This is for politics. This is for geopolitics. This is for life. The love you withhold is the pain you carry.
It's beautiful. Thank you. I really honor that. I received that. That's a great reminder. So thank you. Aaron, thank you for the work you're doing in the world and for the difference you're making for families who really need not just the place to go, but the inspiration you bring.
Thank you.
Truly.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk to your families.
My pleasure. And to those of you listening, take a moment and ask yourself, what's your insight? What are you taking away from this conversation that Aaron and I have been having today? Maybe it's the one kid you were paying attention to or one person in your life. Maybe it was one message you got from him. That's the insight that you want to take forward with you into what's your aha from this conversation? And with that, what do you want to do with that information? What action do you want to take? Where do you want to bring it forward with you into your week this week? And as always, thank you for what you're doing for yourself and for your kids, your engagement, your participation, your intentionality as a parent. It makes an enormous difference. Thanks for being here, everybody. See you next time.
You've been listening to the Parenting with Impact podcast with Elaine and Diane. For more information on the Impact Parents community or to join Sanity School for Parents, please visit impactparents.com. If you like what you've heard, please share this podcast with friends who need similar guidance and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For the essentials of Elaine and Diane's coach approach to parenting, download a free tip sheet at impactparents.com/podcast.
behavior therapy training for parents is actually recommended as a first-line treatment for complex kids. For information about Sanity School, our training program for parents or teachers, which has helped thousands of families around the globe, visit impactparents.com/sanityschool.